If you don't know Word Up, we're a bookshop and art space run by local residents, many of whom are volunteers. We can be found at 2113 Amsterdam Avenue at the corner of 165th Street and Washington Heights. We host events for all ages and sell used and new books in English and Spanish. And right now you can place orders and we'll get them shipped to you since we're not open. Because we're not open for browsing, we started a GoFundMe to maintain our space and meet our obligations while we're closed. So we'll drop the link in the chat just so if you can donate a little bit, just so we can keep going. And a lot of the proceeds will go to any programming we're doing this year. And I'll pass it on to Memphis, who will introduce the authors.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is very exciting. We at Word Up love Renee and Ellen. They co-authored Watch Us Rise, which features an open mic at Word Up. And as somebody who started volunteering on open mic days at Word Up, it's just they're very dear authors. So Ellen Hagan is a writer, performer, and educator. She is the co-author with Renée Watson of Watch Us Rise. And her poetry collections include Blooming Fiascos, which launched recently, and others. Her work can be found in many publications, and she is the director of the poetry and theater departments at the Dream Yard Project. She co-leads the Alice Hoffman Young Writers Retreat at Adelphi University. She was raised in Kentucky, and she now lives in New York with her family. And tonight we'll be celebrating her newest book, Reckless Glorious Girl. Renée Watson is a New York Times bestselling author, educator, and community activist. Her children's books and novels for teens have received several awards and international recognition. Her poetry and fiction centers around the experiences of Black girls and women and explores themes of home, identity, and the intersections of race, class, and gender. Her books include young adult novels, such as Love is a Revolution, which we are celebrating today, Piecing Me Together, This Side of Home, and Watch Us Rise. And now we're going to watch a video from Reckless Glorious Girl. Pass it on to Carolina, and thank you for coming.
To germinate is to shoot forth, straight up from the ground, rise into existence, exist, begin, develop from seed or spore, from bulb to plant, from kid to girl to young woman, develop. To burgeon is to bud, quick with flourish, sprout and arrive. Too bad I don't feel like either of those words. Still growing, still trying to figure out how to take up space and show off. Instead, I'm still somewhere underground, beneath it all, watching everyone else push up and grow, rising up all around me. How I'd love to be Beatrice Miller, queen of the Amplify, expansion even. Tell Mema to watch out for me and my reckless blossoming.
What a beautiful video. Congratulations, Ellen. I am so proud of you and happy for you and just honored to share this evening with you. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I am going to read from Love is a Revolution, which is a book about a girl named Nala who fakes being an activist to get the attention of a guy. And in the process of dating him and telling these lies to get him to love her, she realizes that really in order to love him, she needs to love herself. And so it's a book about self-love and how loving ourselves is the actual radical thing. In the book, Nala makes a lot of lists and she brainstorms in her journal. And so I'm going to read a series of lists from the book. And I'm going to be jumping around. I won't introduce each list, but I'll say the title. And then I'll end with the song lyrics that are in the book as well. So this is from Love is a Revolution. And I'm starting from chapter 1. This is how the book opens. 3 things I want to do this summer. 1, find a new hairstyle. According to grandma, hair is a Black girl's crown. The thicker and longer, the better. So I definitely won't cut it. But I like to experiment, perm it, dye it, weave it, wig it. This summer, I want to do something I haven't done before. Maybe I'll get highlights, chestnut ombre or copper brown. maybe honey blonde, subtle, of course, just enough to add texture and depth. Two, find time to spend with Imani, my cousin, sister, friend. We have a plan to hang out with our best friend Sadie and binge watch everything on Netflix that we've been putting off because of too much schoolwork. We have a long, long list. Three, and this is the most important, find love. And I want to find love because I want to hold somebody's hand as I roam Harlem's summer streets. I want to find love because I am tired of being the fifth wheel with Imani and Asher, who act like they're married, and Sadie and Jackson, who swear they're not a couple, but are always, no, really, always together. It's the last week of June and the first weekend of summer break. We're just months away from being seniors, and I have only had one boyfriend, if I can even call him that. He moved to Philly just after 1 month of us making it official. And I know New York and Philly aren't oceans apart, but they're not around the corner either. We both thought it would be too much of a distance for the two of us to make it work. And I want to find love because now I don't have a date for prom. And I want to find love because who doesn't? Who doesn't want someone to laugh with even when something is corny or only funny if you know the inside joke? Who doesn't want someone to call at night and talk about tiny things like, what are you doing? And want to get something to eat? And big things like, what's the one thing you want to do before you die? And what are you afraid of? And who do you want to be in the world? Yeah, I want that. Three things I love about Ty Brown. One, I love his dark skin, the way his white shirt contrasts against the deep brown complexion. I love his style, how his shirt has the letters BLACK across his chest, making him a living poem. Two, I love the way his deep voice bellows out, filling up the space, how his voice is electric shockwaves when he needs to amp up the crowd, how it is a warm hug when he welcomes each person to the stage. Three, I love that when the fourth person gets choked up with tears because he can't remember the lyrics to his rap, Ty comes from backstage and stands next to him, putting his hand on his shoulder. I love how they just stand there for a whole minute and the audience is silent. How Ty asks, do you want to start over? I love how Ty stands there while the boy performs, never leaving his side, bobbing his head and moving to the beat. Yeah, those are the things I love about Ty. It was definitely worth coming out in the rain tonight. Three things I love about myself. One, my hair. After experimenting with different styles, I've come to love it for the many ways it can transform, for the story it is always telling. Two, my skin. It is dark brown and looks good in yellow and green and any shade of blue, and also white and also gray. And its scars heal like no pain ever happened. And it glistens under the sun. And in the winter, it soaks up shea butter and cocoa butter. And this summer, it soaked up kisses. So many kisses imprinted in this skin of mine. Three, my mind. It is its own, even though sometimes it's tempted to change, falter. Deep down, it is sure, made up, full of ideas and thoughts and sweet memories and an imagination that built faraway places when I was a child. Places I transformed into playlands, under tables, in the backseat of the car, on fire escape and stoops. My mind, it is strong and holds all of who I am. It is still forming and growing, and in so many ways, is still the same. My mind, it is expansive, and there is so much room to feel, so much more to know. So I'm going to close by reading some song lyrics that are in the book. Nala loves music, and part of her evolution is listening to a singer named Blue, who I made up. And these lyrics throughout the book help her gain confidence and kind of speak to her and mentor her in a way. So we wanted to put the lyrics in the book, not just kind of talk about the music. So this is one of the songs, and it's called All I Need. Today, I am possible. I have survived and will survive, and all that is coming is already mine. Not waiting on someone to want me, need me, no fairy tale dreams of what my life might be. I love me right now. Right now, I love me. And even with my flaws, I am enough. And I have failed, but I am not a failure. And love is patient, and love is kind, and love is not just for me to give away. Keep some for myself. Not waiting on someone to want me, need me, no fairy tale dreams of what my life might be. I love me right now. Right now, I love me. Today, I am possible. I have survived and will survive, and all that is coming is already mine. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Ellen so we can hear from her beautiful, beautiful new book.
Yeah, that was so beautiful, Renee. Thank you, Renee. And thank you for being here with me. I love Renée Watson. I love Word Up. I love that we get to share space and to celebrate both books together. This feels like a very special space, and I feel lucky to be part of it. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. So I'm going to read from, of course, Reckless Glorious Girl. This is a story about Beatrice Miller. I feel like I wanted to say I have a heart for Beatrice. She is a 7th grader. She's on the verge of, she hopes to be cool. She hopes to arrive in the world, whatever that means. And she's trying to figure out who she is. She lives with her mom and her grandmother, who she calls Mama. And so the whole book is around her questioning and her figuring out what her path is and how she stays true to herself, while also figuring out how to be glorious and maybe a little bit reckless too. So I'm going to read poems from that. I'll read them one after the other. And again, thank you for being with us tonight. Beatrice Miller's Burning Questions. Will Mom and Mama ever see me as more than a little kid? Will they ever trust me, recognize my growing, see my evolution, witness my expansion? I've been studying other words for mature in our big old thesaurus, and they include evolve, develop, blossom, ripen, arrive. So my question is, will those words ever happen to me? How can I celebrate all the parts of me? Comic book nerd, garden and movie lover, bike rider, swim teamer, nacho eater, mama and mom hugger, late night couch cuddler. Should I shine a light on all the parts of me that no one can see? Nervous, anxious, embarrassed, awkward. Maybe if I could share those feelings, then people would see more of the real me. And then, will Mariella, Stacey Ann, and I ever be officially cool? Not outskirts, outside, sidelined cool, but ruling the school. Making all the jokes, getting all the laughs, full lunch table friends finding us after the bell rings. You know, that kind of cool. The kind that's smooth, enters the room before you do. Anyway, I've got about 1 trillion more, but you have to start somewhere. Beatrice. Maybe my parents could have chosen a name not like a granny. Less grandma, more teenage. Less arthritic, more athletic. Less geriatric, more youngish. Less old folks home, more spring break. Less ancient, more modern. You get the idea. The fact that it really is my mama's name doesn't make it any better. Fact is, it makes it worse, because I love my mama more than the ocean or French toast or sleeping in or bacon. And when I don't spend all my time hating it, my name becomes a beacon, some light to hang on to when it's too dark to see myself. Some nights, Mariella and Stacey Ann show up and out, bring loads of cheese puffs and soda, stash it quiet in my bedroom, late night craving fixes. Mama makes dinner out of fried okra, rice so full of salt and butter our mouths celebrate. Vegan hot dogs sizzling on the grill, it's all about balance, she says. Grins before turning in for TV and her crossword puzzles. The backyard is ours. We collect mason jars with tops, go exploring to catch fireflies, fast in our palms, swatting high fives as they glow and shine, their wings wide in our hands. Look, look, we all holler. Name them, see who can catch the most. Stacey Ann wins this time, counting their light. They glitter through our grip, our faces full of sweat. We laugh while letting go. Their small bodies look like fireworks flying from our fingers. What other people see versus what I see. To other people, Kentucky equals country, hillbilly, backwoods, uneducated, misunderstood. But to me, Kentucky equals home, family, a garden in bloom, everyone who matters, my whole life story. They see empty roads where I see rolling hills. They see small towns where I see everyone I know and who knows me too. They see small minds where I see big old hearts and brilliance. On the news, I hear poverty and underprivileged, but in my home, I see a table full of fresh food from our garden and beds made with quilts from my great-great-granny's two hands. To me, a Kentucky sky is full of stars and shine, smells of woods and fresh earth. Thankful the people who have raised me up have taught me to love where I'm from. Sometimes I pretend I'm dying. Deathbed Beatrice, last leg of hope, descending this world cloaked and solemn in a hospital bed, and the whole 7th grade takes a big yellow school bus zooming all the way down I-65 to see me. Their eyes swollen with tears, weeping and wailing. My condition is so bad, they keep me quarantined from others in a fancy room on the top floor. I don't call it a penthouse, but that's what it is. And all the doctors scurry around with worry, racking their brains to discover what ails me. And the sickness has made my skin totally clear up and made my hair shine-tastic, so that even though I'm headed to the grave, I look amazing. And Brandon cries harder than anyone. So do the top 10 girls. Distraught, they tell me how much they've always loved me. And the teachers, they give speeches about my leadership skills and mostly my heart. And if I wasn't so weak, I'd hold them all. But alas, I'm dying. And then, as if a miracle, I somehow, and against all the odds, and in direct comparison to my desperate diagnosis, survive. Ode to Afternoons Alone. If I can get straight home before Mama ends her shift and comes in aching to talk, and before Mom gets home from errands and wants to know my whole life story, if I can enter the house in silence, heaven, and my whole afternoon gets lifted, and for an hour or even two, I am no longer Beatrice Miller, zit queen, Beatrice Miller, pariah of the 7th grade, Beatrice Miller, big head, Beatrice Miller, no boobs. I am Beatrice Miller, unstoppable. Beatrice Miller, voted most popular, plus most beautiful, plus most likely to end climate change, plus save the world. Beatrice Miller, perfect sized head. Beatrice Miller, bra wearer. Sometimes I throw off all my school clothes and dress up or down, tank tops or frilly dresses, and I turn up the stereo. Yes, we still have a stereo since Mama thinks those electronic devices you talk to try to read your brain. I think she's kidding, but I'm not 100% sure. So I turn it all the way up and dance wild around our house, make miserable amounts of Kraft mac and cheese, the kind Mama refuses to let me have, but Mom stashes in the garage for when we need it most. Junk food and sugar highs are necessary some of the time, and I throw on the TV, kick my feet up on the couch, and pretend the whole wide world is mine. When I Can't Sleep, episode 4592. Walk all night through my mind, so cavernous I nearly get lost. Imagine myself whole, striding into school so cool I nearly glide across the surface. People watch me and say, "Who's that girl? Did we just meet? Is she new? What's her name?" Can't believe I'm the same Beatrice as old. Like some new, shiny, bold, I'm like gold. I shimmer when they look my way. Don't shy away from their attention. I go on, soak it all in. Let them praise the new me. When they ask, "Beatrice," I just say, yes, you missed me the first time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It is, again, a joy and thrill to be here with Renée Watson and to be able to talk and share space with you always. And so we're going to go back and forth a little bit. We are absolutely open to questions too. But I have a first question for Renée. Since we have known each other going on a couple of decades now, and our friendship has been absolutely a catalyst to a lot of the work I have done over the last 15 plus years. So I would love to start with friendship. And if you could talk about how friendship has informed your creative work, how it informs your artistry, how does it make you who you are?
Oh, so I love you too, first of all. And I miss you. So this is such a treat that we get to spend time together tonight. Friendship, how does it inspire or impact my creative work? So I am so fortunate that I grew up with this crew of friends. And to this day, we are still friends. And so I've had this kind of cohort of friends my whole life. And so much of what I write about is inspired by those relationships. Hanging out together, going to church together and school, and all the relationship drama with dating and all of that is fodder for the characters that I write in all of my books. And then the complications of within friendship groups, then there are some that are closer. And then, so like all of that drama that happened in middle school and high school makes for good inspiration for these characters that I'm writing now. My friendships now really hold me as a writer. There's, writing is hard. It's isolating. So much of it we do alone. And so I'm so thankful for people who understand this wild life and this wild dream I have. I travel a lot. I don't always get to see people, but I have been able to stay connected to a core group of new friends. And that's been what keeps me going. And you are certainly one of them. So many people that I've met through our artistic work at DreamYard and Community Word Project, being friends with artists has also been such a gift. So yeah, I'm very fortunate that I've had friends who are also creative. And so we're kind of pushing each other to be our best creative selves.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, same. As you were talking, it made me think of the same thing. I was thinking about, I had an event where we were talking about 20-year friendships. That was sort of the theme. Everybody was saying, oh, 20 years is a long time. And I'm 42, and I have a friend that I've known since we were both babies. So when I think about that, double that, like a 4-decade-long friendship, when they know everything about you, it's been very interesting and there's a cohort. I know we've bonded on that too, when we talk about our friends that we grew up with, that know us in a different way than say, even we met each other as adults. But if somebody has known you since elementary, even, it's funny because I have several friends that have started to read Reckless Glorious Girl, and they see it's not based on my life, but there are some similarities. A lot of the food, a lot of the cafeteria, a lot of my friends have been writing. We're on a big text chain, and everybody is missing that. Let me say this. I know you're going to find this hard to believe out there, but the cafeteria food at Bardstown, Kentucky, it was amazing. People ran. We full sprinted. My friend Megan ran so hard she fell because we were racing to get to the front of the line of the cafeteria because the women were cooking for their lives. They were cooking. It was Southern cooking. They were using salt, butter. It was delicious. So I think about those friendships bonding over food, over seeing art together, over, pre-pandemic, people being in our home, people hanging out, drinking coffee, and then transitioning and having a glass of wine, or, people who could spend the whole day with you. And that feels very exciting when you think about how do I grow with people, and how do they transition with me?
Yeah.
As we change and grow as artists, it's exciting to have friends and friends who do different art forms too. That I have friends who are dancers and visual artists who are often, I'm looking at them as guides too, and thinking about how does that inform my work, and how does it, the back and forth work?
Yeah, I love to think about what you said reminds me of something we've also talked about a lot is that, sometimes in middle grade and in YA, because you need to have a plot and you need to have drama. So a lot of times we lean into the drama between girl friendships, right? And what I love about this book, your book, and what I've tried to do in my work is to not have girls pitting themselves against each other and arguing all the time, but really thinking about the beautiful friendships that I've had and all the women who have loved me and supported me and girded me up. I've had that far more than I've had angst with a bully or with, drama at high school. So yeah, the drama might have been around dating or wanting to wear something and, your own self-esteem issues. But I'm really fortunate that I didn't have a lot of that kind of nitpicky friendship drama, not within my core group. And I try to show that in the books too, so that we can have healthy relationships that girls have with each other. And I love that about your book, that there's this great friendship and the intergenerational relationships that are there with these women. The grandmother, I love her. I love her so much. And I wanted to know if you could talk about that a little bit, about why make a grandmother such a integral part of the story, and where are you pulling from to draw on writing intergenerational books and scenes?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think first of all, I have one living grandparent. She's 100. She'll be 102. She always says that. She's like, I'm not 101. I'll be 102 in May. So she is amazing and thriving. And I had very I had grandparents who were I didn't spend, I didn't live super close to either grandparent where I was in their house, in and out of their house in that way. But the times that I spent with my grandparents were they were an imprint for me. They stamped me in a way. I remember their cooking and I remember their stories and I remember, who they were and how they showed up in the world. And really, Mema in the book is very much, she's very much mirrored on the four grandparents that my children have, on my parents, my husband's parents. She's really a collage of all the character parts of each sort of grandparent. And just the quirkiness or the advice or the sort of out there and being who she is. I think about my mother, who is so much who she is. You just could not, she just shows up in the world exactly as Janina Hagan and Janina Bazaz Hagan. And I think I learned that from her, which was also, you have to be true to yourself. It's okay. I always tell this story about my mom. It was middle school. It was around this time that this is written. And there was it was like a homecoming court and everybody got voted on, but it was really kind of a looks, kind of based on who was, who looked like what. And I didn't get voted in. And I remember crying and I was like, I didn't get to be on the court. And my mom said, well, who cares? We're going to McDonald's and we're going to get ice cream sundaes. Because looks, yes. And I carry that with me always, because I just remember her, it just was so, it was a part of, she just pushed it aside. Like, you're going to carry on. We're going to go get a treat. We're going to go live our life. And you're not going to have to, beauty is not something is going to be your thing that you're relying on. You're just going to have to be yourself. And that's going to be complicated. But we're going to deal with it together. And so Mema, I think, is absolutely trying to get Beatrice to figure out who she is and to trust herself.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was lucky enough to read Love is a Revolution, and it's one of its first draft forms. And it made me think about writing characters that are conflicted with themselves.
Mm.
So how do you, as you wrote Love is a Revolution, what were you how were you crafting characters that they would love themselves, but they're trying to be somebody else, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, well, I think that's how we are, right? As humans. I think there are some mornings I wake up and I feel just fine. And there are other mornings I wake up and I don't. And till this day, as a grown adult. So thinking about being in high school and middle school and all of the angst around fitting in, and am I beautiful enough? Am I smart enough? Will people like me? Being worried. For me, I was the youngest of five. I had very smart, talented older siblings who I was in awe of and a little bit intimidated by as far as following in their footsteps academically. So there's a lot of pressure. And I think I just want to bring that honesty to the page and let young people know it's okay to be um, beautifully flawed and that they're working out their kinks. And that's exactly where they should be at that age, right? So, like, I think when you're like, Nala is 17. So she's figuring it out. And there's stuff that she's very sure of. And then there are some other things that she's still questioning. And I don't know that we always give girls permission to be flawed and not be perfect. A lot of, what we tell young girls and kind of groom them to, even if you are not perfect, act like you are and put up the front and wear the facade. And so in this book, I just wanted a girl who felt really, really, really normal and a girl who sometimes gets it wrong and sometimes gets it right, but has good intention and is trying to and striving to be her best self. So it was fun to write her. I mean, it was also challenging because I needed her to be likable, right? She lies a lot in this book. And so it was a fine balance of like, well, I don't want to make the reader so frustrated with her that they're not rooting for her. So that was a delicate balance to figure out how far to push her dishonesty and making sure that the reader understood why she was doing what she was doing so that they would still be rooting for her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it made me think. It made me think of I think you've given me this advice from Cheryl, who your sister, who I love all of your whole family, and she was saying as you get older, you start to become a little bit more secure in yourself, or like the 40s. So like
Yes.
we were talking about the 40s for a long time. We were
Yeah.
like, oh, 40s are gonna be so good. And it is. I do like I trust myself much more the older I get. But yeah, it's that, but I still remember, and of course, there's hitches, there's parts where you're like, I don't totally trust myself yet. I'm figuring it out. But I think that what you said about we're all the time trying to figure this out. We're all the time going through the process of, you have to be kind of nimble as you get as you go through life and figure out. It made me think of when I was starting the idea for Reckless Glorious Girl. I was in a 7th grade classroom, and I work at an amazing organization called the Dream Yard Project. And Vincent Toro, who's a great poet, he was in a 7th grade classroom, and he was teaching Pablo Neruda's Book of Questions. And it was a full on 7th grade. And when I say that, I mean they were just 7th graders are wearing their hearts. They're goofy, they're silly, but they're also it's like their heart and a mask.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there, but they're nervous and they're shy and they're bold and they had to ask these extraordinary questions. And I sat at a table with a group, and I'd been there before, so I kind of knew the kids. And I think they were asking and they were jotting down the questions. And one was, I remember he was asking if he'll ever get to go to Japan. And somebody else had a little like, will I get my first kiss? Like, it was very sweet. She was kind of like just quietly sharing. And I remember thinking, gosh, that age is so, and that age then forever too. You're always kind of thinking and asking fantastical questions and then very small questions, so I think it's kind of, you're trying to navigate the world and figure out how do you show up, who are you, and I think that's an ongoing, it's ongoing.
Yeah, and I love that about Beatrice is that she has so many questions and she's not afraid to ask them. Like I think when I was younger, I had a lot of questions, but I didn't always voice them. I wrote them in my journal, but I would have been the kid who was small writing on the side of the margin that you just described. Yeah, because I don't know that I've really found my actual voice. Like I found my voice as a writer very early and felt very comfortable writing things down, but speaking them out loud, not so much. But I love that she is like really outspoken and opinionated and kind of pushing back against some family tradition and norms, and also norms within friendships in her school. And I just love that she is bold enough to even speak up and ask the question and say what she wants. And a girl who knows what she wants and can say what she wants is a powerful girl. So I just love that character, that our young girls have this character to look to for that kind of guidance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want, oh, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say that my oldest daughter, who is 10, she read the book just recently. She read it and she got so. It was funny because she likes to check in with me as she's reading it. She tells me what she thinks. She tells me what part she likes, what part she has questions about. And she got to a part where Beatrice does something that towards the end she kind of does something out of character. And my oldest daughter got emotional about it. She said, I didn't think Beatrice was going to do this. Why did she do this? Why she's disappointing? And I stopped myself from being like, right, and don't ever do that. Don't ever do anything, But not, I felt like, you want there to be characters who are outspoken. You want them to be able to make mistakes. I think we talked about this a lot when we were writing Watch Us Rise, is that you want to write nuanced, complicated characters. You don't want them to have all the answers. You don't want them to be perfect. You want them to be asking and thinking and sort of, figuring it out as they go, and so I think that's the part of the fun about writing too. That's part of the, I will say Reckless Glorious Girl was so much fun to write. It was a ride. And it made me think about, I was recently talking about journals when I was in the 7th grade. And I started to keep a really serious journal in 7th grade. And I have it. It is like a gingham, a red and green, maybe a holiday themed journal. And on the sides of it, it would have the couples, the 7th grade couples, H and whoever. I dated like maybe one person, and it would be their initials. And then a week later, it'd be crossed out.
Oh no!
And then somebody new, everybody. So there would be hearts, and then heart crossed. And so I just think about, how 7th grade. So it reminded me of that time and all of those complications of what middle school was like,
Oh my goodness, that is the best. Hearts and crossed out hearts. That is like the metaphor for middle school. I want to talk about Kentucky and maybe about Harlem and Portland. Both of us really, write about the places we live in, places we love, places we know well. And Kentucky is on the page. And through your stories and us just being friends, I feel like I know a lot about where you grew up, but reading this and actually all the food and all of the, just the Southern ways of being, especially in the grandmother and the mother, really painted this very clear picture of your hometown. So can you talk a little bit about why you chose to write this and place it in Kentucky, and how growing up in Kentucky impacted the book, if it did?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think Kentucky is, I spent 22 years in Kentucky. I went to the University of Kentucky. I spent 22 years by the time I was a teenager, trying to get out of Kentucky. Mm. And as soon as I got out of Kentucky, I've spent the last 20 years trying to figure out how to get back to Kentucky, and it wasn't until I left. I knew it when I was there, but really these last 20 years away from Kentucky have made me long for the smell of Kentucky. Once I get to Kentucky, the smell of the air, the sky is different, the hills, it feels like this rolling hill of green, and also it just feels, Kentucky, Bardstown especially, it doesn't really feel like a southern city, but it feels country. And I don't know, it just feels like everybody's got a little twang. There's country cooking. There's just a sense of being connected to the land. I didn't grow up in the country. I grew up in the suburbs, but I still felt connected to, when we went out to hang out as high schoolers, we went out driving around you could go 10 minutes and you'd be in the country. So our night out was like driving in the country. It was not like going to somewhere. There wasn't really a coffee shop or record shop or anything like that. But being Friday and Saturday nights, or we would go out to like the river and sit around and just hang out and be together outside. And there was something about being connected to nature, being connected to the landscape in Kentucky, and then the people and the food. You know, I think about my Papa had on my dad's side. He grew up in New Haven, Kentucky, and they had a huge garden. So and he would eat things right out of the garden. So it was a very much, you know, it wasn't like you took it in and you know, you ate from the earth. And I think I remember that, and I carry that with me always. You know, I think so, and also other people's perceptions of Kentucky, that it was too country or bad, you know, those poems about Kentucky. I wanted to center Kentucky so people could see all the parts of a place. You know, I think, and that's why I'd love to talk about Portland too, and Oregon, because you know, like, how do you shift people's perceptions of a place they might not know, or they only know from a TV show, or they only know from one narrative. So why was it important for you to write about Oregon?
So, well, first, I write so much of my stories take place in Oregon just because I feel like, you know, Black people have kind of been erased from the Pacific Northwest in general, like how we got there, the migration there, not just from the South to the North. And also, you know, you mentioned a show, but most people, when they meet me, they're like, first of all, they're surprised that they're like, wow, there are Black people in Portland. I'm like, yes, we're everywhere. And then the second thing is it just like Portlandia? And I'm like, okay, here we go. You know, so there's always this perception of Oregon, like you just said about Kentucky, that I feel like I want to address in my writing. I want Black girls to feel seen and centered in stories where they are in a place that isn't always so kind and loving to them, but that also in the neighborhoods where we live is very kind and loving and nurturing. And so having that on the page is important to me. And then with Harlem in Love is a Revolution, so many people know New York, and they know Harlem in an old school, very like nostalgic way, right? The Harlem Renaissance. And so I wanted to kind of demystify that and let Nala walk the streets of Harlem and actually go to stores and the ice cream shop and her feet be on the pavement, so we could feel Harlem maybe in a new way and through the eyes of a young person, not necessarily through a poet or, you know, through someone who is being the scholar about Harlem, but who's just like, yo, I live in Harlem and there's a lot of stuff to do. It's hot in the summertime and there's always music blaring. You know, I wanted that vibe to be on the page. So yeah, when I write about place, I'm trying to make cities and neighborhoods their own character in a way, and have them really show up and exist and bring things out of the character that maybe you wouldn't know about that character if they were living somewhere else. Harlem brings out something in Nala by way of its wide sidewalks. Like she talks about even the shape of her body would move differently if this story was on the Upper East Side, right? So I'm always thinking of how does setting impact the character and making sure that those two things are always kind of in conversation with each other, even if it's not so obvious on the page. I'm thinking of all of that. So for example, her hair changes, but she in the beginning of the book, she's wearing her hair straight. She straightened it, and there's a huge, hot, humid summer rainstorm. And that does something to a Black girl's hair. So I'm always thinking about no wasted words when it comes to describing setting. It has to impact the life of the character. And I had a lot of fun writing in Harlem for this and for Watch Us Rise too.
Yeah, you mentioned that you were talking to a friend who had grown up in Harlem, and they had read your book, and they were like, "Oh, were you writing about my teenage years?" Yes. And I loved that, or that they were skating at Riverside or Riverbank. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, I think that is kind of amazing too, to think about that. We didn't necessarily grow up. We didn't have our teenage years in New York, but to be able to, you know, in New York, you have the lucky chance to watch teenagers. I see them in the park. You see them walking.
Yes.
You can see how they are living in New York, and to raise kids here. I'm always thinking about who are they going to be in New York City, and so it also that's a testament to your watchful eye to how you how you see the world and how you watch, things happen around you. So I remember you sharing that, and I was like, oh, that's what it would have been like if we grew up in, you know.
Oh, thanks for saying that. It's so funny. It took me a while to feel confident enough to write characters who live here. Because like you said, I didn't grow up here. So I really write from what I know, which is Portland. So the first time I did Harlem's Little Blackbird, which was research and historical. And then with some places more than others, I was kind of bridging like, okay, this girl is from Portland and she visits Harlem. So that I was coming at it from just the way a newbie would describe the place. But now I feel like this is really home. It's my second home. And I feel like I can write about it in a way that I couldn't have when I first moved here.
Yeah.
Before we get to questions, and please, if you all who are joining us tonight, if you have a question, please send it to us and we will be in conversation with you as well. So Ellen, those of you who don't know, but I think most of you all are family, friends, and loved ones. So Ellen, you are, what we would say, what is it? A person who gets an Oscar, Grammy, and Tony. You have a poetry book for adults. You have a young adult novel. You have a middle grade novel. I mean, you write widely. What is that like to switch genres like that? And I really am interested in what have you learned about yourself as a writer, having now had these three different, very different ages and types of writing. What are you learning about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like I'm learning so much as I go. You know, I I was saying this the other day that I've kept a journal, like I said, since seventh grade, steadily. I've been writing, and so I think of myself first as a documentarian. I'm married to a photographer and filmmaker, and David has absolutely documented the world. And we were having some conversations and thinking about how we've both been documenting in different ways. So I think about that as just, note taking. I think I started as a writer just as note taking. I came to poetry first, and that was because of Kelly Norman Ellis, Karen Harriman, certain teachers who were inspired me as a poet. But I always loved to read fiction. I always, novels are my favorite thing. I love to get lost in a novel. I've loved that since I could read novels. I've read, widely a lot of things because I loved that idea of really truly getting lost in that different world. And so my MFA, and I say this because it's a long way to get to this answer, but my undergraduate degree is in acting. And then I was like, I love acting, but I really want to write for the stage. So I want to write monologues, and I wrote a solo show and was writing. And then I realized, I really love to write. So I had taken a couple of memoir classes, which were not fiction classes, and I ended up getting my MFA in fiction at the New School. So I started writing. By the time I got to my MFA program, I hadn't really written a short story. I'd written memoir, I'd written, pieces about myself, but I didn't have the tools. And I was 22, I was young. So it took a long time to figure out what I was going to write and what was going to be my focus. So by the time I've always written, I stayed writing poetry. So that was the first thing I got published in, but I always, in the back of my mind, wanted to be able to write a novel. I wanted to write a story. I don't think I had all the tools for it. So even after getting in the MFA, I was working and I was writing through it, but I was still trying to figure out. I think also I had a lot of ideas for stories, but sitting down to do it was a different game. And so all kinds of different things happened. Then I had kids. Then I was like knocked out of the game for a little bit. I had, so when we've known each other for a long time, but when you said, how about we write a book? I was like, please, I need to write a book with you. Let's do it. Because you taught me a lot about it, going back to here's how you write a novel. Here's how you write, here are the tools of it. Here's the timeline. Here's how we're going to do it. So I feel like it was like taking a class again. It was like going back to the MFA program. I learned a lot from that process. I loved it. So I think now I'm really loving storytelling. The poetry book came out and I was like, I don't think I'm going to write another poetry book for a long time. And then after the poetry party, I was like, I got to write another one soon. So all the writing's in service of gathering people, parties, hanging out, celebrating, because, you know, long answer, but art making to me is collaborative. It's our writing our book together was the best because we were together. We were in the house, you know, and so art to me is dialogue, it's community, it's that gathering ground for creating the world we want to happen. So I don't know that answered your question, but I really enjoyed answering it. I really got into the answer. And I appreciate it. And the same, I know there might be questions, but the same is true if there aren't, because I'd love to know the same for you, because your picture books, YA, poetry. So I think you're doing that same thing. So I'm curious also.
Yeah, I mean, I just always ask myself, what does this story want to be? I feel like stories come to me in the way they want to be told. So I never just kind of sit and say, I want to write a novel or I want to write, you know, a picture book. I get an idea and it comes to me like, oh, this would be a good picture book, or this is, you know, I just kind of got to have a feel of what is going to happen in the story and who the story is for, and that kind of shapes you know, what type of book it's going to be. And I don't know, I think I've learned about myself that I mean, for me, I am learning how to, you know, how to play again and experiment. I think you can get stuck doing the same thing, especially if it works well and you have a readership. There's an expectation of what people want from you. So I'm trying to continue to push myself creatively and take creative risk, and that I like doing that, you know, and I just kind of want to fall in love with language again and not always write for public eye. Like I'm also just writing in my journal a lot more and writing things that I will probably never share and just letting those words be for me. And so I'm learning that I need both of like, I need some writing that is just mine and then stuff that's to share. And I think I kind of got away from that in the last few years of just the busyness of turning out so many books back to back. I am like taking a break of like, oh, actually, I'm just going to write this for me. And that's been really fun too. We do have a question. I want to make sure we have some time to get to it. Let's see. Oh, have y'all been able to meet up in person during COVID? Would love to know about how your collaboration has worked this past year.
Sadly, no, but we haven't met up in person. But I feel like we've written. First of all, Renee and I are phone talkers. We love to talk on the phone. I think that is
because we're 90s babies. Like I mean, high school was in the 90s, and we've reverted back to being teenagers again.
so true. It's so true. If I had a landline, my ear would be sore, you know, hot by the end of it.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think we have not been able to meet in person, but I feel like we were saying the other day, it doesn't feel like we have missed each other because it's we've caught up.
Yeah.
And writing again too, because we're both working on things, different projects. And so we've done several Fridays where we have met up or we're writing together, and then we'll get onto a call and share, you know, a video call and share work out loud. I love that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And I mean, you just, to any of the writers who are with us tonight, you just got to find a way to still make it work and still be with your people. And so thank God for technology, right? That brings us together in that way. It's been great writing with you, even though we're not in the same room anymore, but still feeling so connected for sure. I think, yeah, we have time for a few more. You want to do the next one?
Sure. This is what made you two come together for Watch Us Rise. You want to start it?
Sure. I wanted to write with Ellen. I mean, we had worked together so long, co-teaching, leading trainings together, working and mentoring young girls. And I wanted to write this book, and I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. Like I wanted to have a partner in it with me who I could trust and who I knew from the beginning we'd be on the same page about what we wanted these girls to be. So for me, it was just wanting to collaborate with someone I respect and admire and who I like making with. We had collaborated on short things like poems and had performed some things together, but I really wanted to do long form with you. So that's why.
And because Renee and I also taught together, I think that was a big part of it. We knew each other from the classroom. We started working together at an amazing organization called Community Word. And we're in the classroom. We spent time in the classroom also with young people. So watching young people and thinking about being in conversations with teenagers, also about what was on their minds, and seeing what they cared about and how much they fought for those things too. You know, we wanted a book that showcased how brilliant young people are and how much they can show up for themselves. And we wanted a book about friendship. You know, I think it was, that was the core of it, you know, and I think also I do want to give a shout out to Bloomsbury and Sarah Shumway Liu, who also working with an editor on both Reckless Glorious Girl and Watch Us Rise has also helped to fine tune the story too, because I think we had the idea of the story, and going back and that back and forth, I feel like is also it's a game changer for me in the storytelling. That process is I feel like that's when I talk about that collaborative process. It feels like an exciting space to be making a book with someone and then having that back and forth with an editor as well.
Yeah, I'll add to that. You know, we would say this all the time when we were touring together and talking about Chelsea and Jasmine. We know those girls, right? And I think we both wanted to honor the young women that we have mentored and who have also impacted us. Like we're not making up these ideal teens. It's like, no, I know the girl who is starting the after school poetry club and who is, you know, raising her voice and making change. And so, yeah, I think we wanted to honor the real girls that we have worked with. It was and is always a beautiful experience to have a vision and then have an editor come in and help you shape and mold it. And that's where all the real writing and the real work happens. And so, yeah, it's been great to work on these books with Sarah. We both have the same editor for our solo books too. So yeah, it's been great collaborating and working with Sarah at Bloomsbury.
One last question, maybe?
Sure, yeah.
This is, do you have any interest in writing for movies or TV? You're both so good at so many different forms.
I always say that, yes, I am a writer, right? So right now I'm writing a lot of children's books, but yeah, I mean, one day I want to write a play. I used to write, but actually what I used to write mostly, I used to write plays and poetry. I never thought I would write a novel. So it's so funny that I have novels in the world and haven't really pursued theater and poetry like I thought I would. So yeah, I want to do movies, TV shows, a play, poetry. I want to do all of it. I feel like I'm a writer. So however the story comes to me is how I want to tell it.
I love that. Same. Let's put it all out in the universe. Let's create all the things. I feel like it's just, everything has to be in service of creating great work with great people. Like, let's be together. Let's make art together. Let's be in this work and world together. It feels very lucky to have shared this space tonight and to be with all of you all. Thankful to Word Up again, and yes, all the spaces that help lift up this work. Yeah.
So thank you again for joining us, and congratulations, Ellen. Again, I'm so proud of you, happy for you. And thanks everybody for joining us tonight. We're going to turn it back over to Word Up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Again, you can buy both of their books on our website. We'll get them shipped to you as soon as possible. And yeah, if you can, we have a GoFundMe, so go check it out and support us. You can also become a sustaining member at withfriends.co/wordupbooks.com. Memphis, do you want to say anything?
Thank you so much, Ellen and Renee, for coming and reading and sharing your work and having such wonderful conversation. It's really great when there are two really amazing authors who are also great friends. You can really feel it. It's really enjoyable. And thank you. And I can't wait until we can do something in person. The Blooming Fiascos event was like delightful, and everyone I know who went to it had a great time. And I think we have a wonderful future of celebrating all of your works that come out in any form. So thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for those in the chat. We'll see you at our next event. And take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you all.